our roads safe.
Jericho Keys. BBC. Radio York.
If it happens and you see it on your travels, just remember where you heard it first. But now this morning, I want to spend a few minutes talking about something that will probably affect most of us at some point in our lives. Loneliness. It doesn't matter what age you are. You can be lonely in your teens, in your 20s, or someone in your 60s and 70s. You can be lonely in a room full of hundreds of people. Here in North Yorkshire, we're lucky to live in such a beautiful countryside, but on the downside of that, it is very rural, and sometimes it is difficult to get out and do essential tasks like shopping, errands and socialising. But today, hoping to change that, a big pink bus is being launched to help people get out and about. This bus will aim to connect people from Beedale and the surrounding villages with local markets. Now, the Yorkshire vet Peter Wright is travelling on the bus for the very first time to Massham, and alongside him is Chris Ferguson, who writes for the Parish Magazine, and they both join us this morning. A very good morning to you, fellas.
Morning,
Good
Jericho.
morning.
Morning. Peter, I'll start with you. How did you get involved in the big pink bus?
Well, I've been involved for some time, and I've recognised the fact that, especially in rural outlying areas, that a lot of people, especially people living on their own, are extremely isolated. And I think this became very apparent during COVID, because as key workers going around farms, we still had to do our jobs. And people, especially elderly people, were not seeing anyone from one day to the next. And also, you know, being a vet, you do a first-hand view of the problems that people face. We think of isolation being an issue in major cities, but it's far, far worse in rural areas. And a lot of the people who live in rural areas are very stoical and very proud, and they don't want to admit that they've problems of loneliness and isolation.
Yeah, so talk to me about the idea then of this bus then, Peter, how it's going to help with people who are suffering with loneliness in those rural areas.
Well, HEC identified again during COVID of the isolation that people were suffering from, and it stems from there. And once it became allowed, they started setting up community get-togethers where people could go in and have a bowl of soup. And I think more importantly than that, though, was to have a bit of a chat. And from then on, it developed by the community group at HEC Sausages. What more can we do to help? And overwhelmingly, one of the issues that was identified was transport. Again, where people are outlying and they would like to go shopping in the local market towns, but getting there was a major issue. And I think this is a fantastic initiative that HEC have taken on to provide this minibus. You know, you can get wheelchairs on there as well. And it's very simple to get, and it's down to the people themselves to say where they want to go. So it's a very fluid arrangement. So if they want to go into Massham, as we're doing today, or if they want to go into Ripon, then to do the shopping, or Thirsk, or Northallerton, then they can do so. And I think this is fantastic, because it's not only benefiting the people themselves, but it's benefiting the local shopkeepers as well, where people could get in who would struggle to get in and do the shopping normally. I think it's a fantastic initiative.
Yeah, me too. I'll speak to you now, Chris is Chris Ferguson, who writes for the Parish Magazine. You know, Peter just mentioned there the difference it makes to people.
That's not quite right, actually. I don't write for the Parish Magazine. I have sent it a couple of articles, but I'm not a writer for them.
Okay, I'm just
a local resident.
All right.
No, that's all right, just to clarify.
Okay, so let's talk about those things that Peter just mentioned then, because he mentioned that it will help local businesses, but also help people in these rural areas. How much of a need is there for something like this kind of service, around your experience?
Well, I think there is a definite need for it. I'd like to echo and agree with what he said, of course. It might help if I were to put HEC into a bit of context here. As you may well be aware, it's a local family-run company that just seems keen to preserve its links with the district where it was set up some dozen or so years ago. And it's already helped sponsor a recent concert in aid of charity. And as Peter mentioned, he referred to providing bowls of soup and so on. There's a local initiative arranged by some of the residents, particularly in the village of Kirklington, where on Fridays they have people around providing free meals. It's not just soup, it's quiches, sandwiches, cakes, coffee, tea, all that sort of thing. And Heck have helped to get involved with that, and sometimes even run it themselves on some occasions. And it's an important point, if I may say so, that Peter has emphasised. It's not just about money. It concerns community involvement and interaction. And that's something which the Keeble family, who've set this initiative up with Heck, seem to care about. They're trying to put something back into the area in which they have family roots and have built up their business. And so you can see the history of how this idea developed from their assistance with people during COVID has now progressed to this pink 9-seater minibus, which, incidentally, as Peter mentioned, it's not, and as you mentioned in your introduction, it's not just for the elderly. You can have loneliness at any age, and it's not just about loneliness. It even has wheelchair access, I think you'll find. And it's really something that, if you were to sum it up in a couple of words, I think it's been provided as a community asset. So all in all, it rings a positive and caring note in a world currently full of bitter and sorry news. And for that, one must surely be grateful. And perhaps other organisations locally could have similar schemes. And if not, maybe this is a good time to consider it. Meanwhile,
you never know. Heck could be the trailblazer to this happening elsewhere. Peter, if I ask you a question as well, are you aware of this bus being set up because it was a reaction to the community speaking out, saying they felt isolated in these rural areas, or was it just something that Heck thought was a good idea and the community have thought, actually, yeah, this is fantastic, we could do this, this is a lifeline for some of us?
No, I think this is an initiative that have been set up by the community group at Heck. But they've listened to what people want. They've put this service on because there's a demand for it. And as Chris quite rightly says, you know, we have a lot of isolation and loneliness. And it isn't just elderly people either, you know, people that are disabled, people that have difficulty getting around. But also, you know, in our local areas, unlike the cities, which I mentioned earlier, you know, where there's fantastic bus services, we have nothing like that here. We don't have bus service. These are one of the things that goes when local authorities have to make cutbacks. These are the services that disappear. And Heck have identified this need, so listening to the local people as to what they actually want. And this bus isn't just going to be running into towns, it's going to be there for if people want to go off on a social event, if they want to go for a day out. It can be driven by anyone who's suitable, and it just gives people a lot more freedom. And as Chris quite rightly says, other people need to follow the example of Heck and take up the gauntlet and really look to the local communities and see what they can do to help.
Peter, you can tell me to mind my own business if this is too much of an intrusive question, but have you experienced loneliness and felt isolation in your line of work, in your life?
Not so particularly, because I'm relatively able to get around and have a vehicle. So if I'm feeling a bit down, I can just pop into Thirsk, and you know, it's more than just the food, you know, with these get-togethers. It's the fact that people can have a chat and interact, even on the bus as well. You know, you can have a chat with who you're sitting next to, and I don't really suffer from loneliness. I mean, I'm very lucky in that I'm married, and you know, we can chat at home. But a lot of people, you know, some people don't have a partner at home or a relative at home that they can converse with. And being a vet, I've got to say this really, you know, sometimes, especially during COVID, it's the pet that was important as a companion. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about this morning, but it does highlight the fact what we're talking about. And, you know, I saw this, again, going back to COVID, where people struggle to get through life without a pet. And I think this initiative that the Keeble family have taken on, I think it's an absolutely superb thing, and I wish there was more of it in our communities.
Well, hopefully this will just be the start. Thank you very much for your time this morning. That's the Yorkshire vet, Peter Wright and Chris Ferguson, talking to us about the difference a big pink bus 9-seater will make to the people of Beedale and surrounding areas, hoping to combat loneliness and isolation and get them into access into the towns. By the way, Peter Wright is back on the telly tonight in the latest episode of the Yorkshire Vet. That's on Channel 5 at 8 o'clock, 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 Channel